Lackey, and I'm here in the shooting space of my studio, and I wanted to show you just how simple it can be to shoot macro. And what I mean by that is you can just find a simple little thing, use techniques to shoot really close, and light it up and get great results. So I stepped outside and found these sad-looking pansies, and I just want to play with a couple shots using my D5 camera and my 105 f2.8 macro lens. I'm going to grab this pretty, not really matching, coordinating well chair with this backdrop and just use this as my backdrop here. One of the first things I'm thinking about is I want to really light these up because of the fact that I'm going to shoot at a pretty extended field of focus, like an f16, so I can get in really, really close. And one of the best ways to do that is to really light your subjects up well. One of the things I'm thinking about when I go in really close to a subject to determine if it's worth a macro shot is kind of looking at the patterns and how I can compose a shot. You know, here, this is kind of a lifeless little sluggy guy, but when you go in really close, the patterns are gorgeous. I'm gonna get a quick shot of that to show you. So you end up getting, like, when you go in really close, this gorgeous little shape and these stains almost. It looks like paint was splattered on these pansies. It's gorgeous. Something that's really important to be cognizant of is that with a macro shot, you want to get really, really close. And oftentimes the lens will hunt around to try to find the area of most contrast and really lock in that focus. And this lens is pretty great because it will enable you to get closer than even the autofocus. You can kind of go into a manual mode and focus that way. So I don't usually manual focus because I'm doing a lot of portraits and things that are moving. But in this case, it's brilliant. If I didn't have the benefit of this light and I was shooting in a lower light and I had to really lower that shutter speed so I didn't max out my ISO, I would make sure to have a tripod. This is nothing more than tinfoil over a piece of cardboard. But just to give this kind of cool reflective look, I'm gonna just add a little bit of water, not just on the flower, but around the flower. And then actually make sure I compose it in a way that kind of shows all that off. So now I'm aiming for not just to show the item, but actually compose it in a kind of an interesting way. And one other thing I like to do, as soon as I catch a really great focus, switch it into manual mode so that the lens won't keep hunting. And right down to just an everyday, well, not everyday, I love this ring, it's my ring. But you can do the same sort of technique and really show off some gorgeous colors and shine and sparkle. So there you go, just a few simple things, positioned well, lit well, using the right settings, and that's all you need to make some beautiful macro shots. Let's jump into On1 2019 and have some fun.
So had a pretty low-key experience photographing some macro things. And I say low-key because you could see just how little had to be done to get kind of a shot like this, which I think is fine. And I'm going to show you what I mean in a second, why I think it's just fine. But shooting this was, the best part of this was using good gear, shooting with the Nikon D5 and the 105 f2.8 macro lens. That definitely helped with this. But the rest of it was just lighting and technique. It wasn't really about much else. So the specs on this is ISO 1600. It was shot at 1/80th of a second and f20 because the closer you're shooting, the more you want to try to keep in focus to get a clear macro shot. On this image though, if I'm looking at this as a product shot, something that I would want to provide my client with on an assignment, I would think that this doesn't really suit the image that well the way this was shot because it's mostly this band and not as much this front area with the beautiful jewels that would really help sell things. So what I want to do is use the transform tool in a way that's pretty dramatic but will really make a difference in terms of what I'm going for. I'm going to go in here and just almost literally make it look like I've changed the angle from where I've shot. I'm going to have it be that much. I'm going to go into the horizontal and kind of straighten it out a little bit. You know, have that kind of prominent first jewel there. And I'm going to go into lens correction and not use it to correct anything, but use it to distort in a good way, giving me the opportunity to really bring those jewels front and center I see here, I want to just straighten it out a little bit because it moved. And now I'm in a pretty good spot. I'm going to go into the crop tool. I could just scale this in, which would zoom in the image, but I would prefer to use the crop tool in this instance, so I can, as I'm scaling, basically with the crop tool, I can also go ahead and ensure that the angle of the shot, when I'm turning it one way or another, kind of lines up with what I'm looking for. And what I'm looking for is this. I want to be able to have these access points kind of equidistant, and the other ones kind of line up with the reflections in the water. And I like how that looks. That works out really well for me. So I'm going to just hit enter on that. And just right here, if you look at the preview, it's a pretty different image from where we started. It looks like it was shot at an entirely different angle, and the product looks a little different. Now going into the local adjustments, I want to just do something really simple. I'm going to bring this brush size down a little bit, keep that feather pretty large, and I'm going to brush over the parts that I really want to highlight and brighten up the exposure, which gives me this really nice shift. Go ahead and add a little bit more detail in with that structure, and then pop up the saturation and vibrance. And without doing much else, I go from here to here, and I'm really happy with that macro shot.